In this video, I'd like to introduce Tangora's Visual Designer. In the next few minutes, I'll show you what Visual Designer can be used for, and then I'll create a site design to show you firsthand how easy it is to use. I have on screen our demo site Frez, a site for a fictive organic food company. A web page is made up of content which is displayed based on various design layouts which are used together at various levels of your site. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Clicking through, I can see we have a persistent top-level design layout in use, which defines the page's overall width, a header image, the look of the navigation, etc. And some pages we could see are made up of 3 columns, while others are just made up of 2. And on the stores page, for example, we could also see a specialized layout which determines how the addresses are displayed. Visual Designer is a tool that you could use to create and modify these layouts. And the great thing about Visual Designer is that it's intuitive. You just need a little bit of experience with the interface to be able to work on the layout. Let's continue by making a redesign in Visual Designer which affects the overall look of our site. In Tangora, we call this a site layout. Up on screen, I have a new site layout in Visual Designer. In brief, we can see that we can insert different elements to the layout, which is the white block in the center, which contains our website's content. These elements can either be structural, that is to say columns, or they could be content or content placeholders. I want a space at the top where there's a header image, on top of which I want a logo placed. What I'll do to achieve this is to insert a single column, and then I'll select that column. What happens then is that I have a context-sensitive tab which appears, where I can format my newly added column. Among my choices here is background image. I'll choose an image from my central image archive called Twilight Header. Now I'll adjust the height of my single column just by dragging the bottom border downwards and adjusting to the image height. Then I can insert an image element inside the selected column element by going to the Insert tab and hitting Image. When I grab hold of the logo that I've just placed, you'll notice that it gets a green border. This is because it's a content-based element as distinct from a structural element, which gets a yellow border. You'll also notice that there are context-sensitive tabs which appear. So let's align the logo to the right-hand side by choosing Wrap, Float Right, and then I can fine-tune the placement of the given element by adding a margin of a few pixels. And as you can see, I have a handy Apply button, so I can adjust the placement by eye. Now I can set some features of my logo element. I want a hover image, and I want my logo to link to my home page. I've created and loaded a color scheme in advance, so now I can set the background of my layout to a dark brown under the Page tab. And I could also take hold of the column which contains my background image and add a background color to this specific column, so I get a dark brown background behind the transparent rounded corners that I happen to have in this image. Incidentally, I could save along the way just by hitting the icon at the top, or else by hitting Ctrl S. Let's add a navigation now. The structure of a site is hierarchical, so I could have a page which has subpages, which in turn can also have subpages. These levels are indicated in my design simply with the numbers 1, 2, 3, etc. So if I click off onto the background and then just insert a navigation here, we can see the navigation is set right below my header. And we can see by the numbers here that we have a top level or a first level navigation here. I also want a sub-navigation in a column to the left of my main content on my page. I'll add a 2-column set, and as you can see, I can adjust the height and width very easily. So inside my left-hand column, I'll add a navigation, and we can see it gets the number 2. If I want to have my third level pages to appear under their respective second level menu points, I can take hold of my navigation and then just insert another navigation, and now it'll just work automatically. Now I can format my navigation. I'll grab hold of the main navigation. For a start, I have a library of different customizable looks, so I have the option to choose one that resembles what I want, and I could do that for the sub-navigation as well. And what I could do then is create a new navigation as a copy. And here I can adjust the colors and the way the navigation looks in the different states. It doesn't take much to change the colors, and I can also see a preview of how it will look along the way. And I'll do the same for my sub-navigation. Next, I want to add a placeholder for where my main page content will be placed. So I'll just set in the element called Content, And I can, for example, add a margin around my content to add a little bit of visual space. Now I'm going to set in a breadcrumb navigation, a sort of supplementary navigational tool. But when I add this element at this point, you'll notice that it appears at the bottom of my layout. No problem. All I have to do is grab a hold of it, and then I use the arrows on my keyboard to move the breadcrumb navigation up, and then I can add a little padding. Next I'll add a footer, which is typically used as an area for an address, and this can just be a text box element. Or I'll also add some space to visually separate this element. I can adjust the overall look of my site, including such things as font, font size, and also color. There's a choice here called Accent Color, which is a shortcut to apply an accent color to a variety of different elements. So for example, I can add an orange accent color here, and if I wanted to overrule that accent color, say my breadcrumb path, then I could just take hold of a given element and do the same operation. As a final touch, I can add a border by taking hold of my right-hand column here, and then under Columns Formatting, I'll define a border for all sides, where I just negate the right-hand border. I can mention here that there is also a tab called View, where I have amongst my choices the ability to hide my column borders. And now I can really begin to see how this design is going to look. But to see how the site will look with my existing site content, I'll hit the Preview button up here at the top. This prompts me to save. And now, up on screen is the same site I showed you at the beginning with our new layout. I haven't applied our layout yet. That's done elsewhere. But now I'm done, so I can publish and save my layout, and it's ready to be applied. I've just taken you through some of the basics of Visual Designer. I presented the concept of combining layouts, and we've briefly gone through the building of a site design. As you can see, once you get the hang of the intuitive interface, the power to control the design of your Tangora solution is in your hands. Thanks for watching.